Hi there. This is a spar and brawl, and we are gonna try to experiment with a new type of videos we're gonna do, which is basically gonna be one of us presenting a specific issue or a specific topic that maybe both of us are not, quite caught up on or quite interested in, or there is no point of us going back and forth. Basically, it's just number of facts. So let's get into it. We're gonna start with two videos. We're gonna do a video on AUKUS deal and its ramifications, the deal between UK, US, and Australia, and then we're gonna talk about Iran becoming part of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which could be described as another sort of a deal. And these are gonna be the two different videos which we're gonna discuss these specific issues. On the AUKUS deal and its ramification, we're going to talk about what's the deal itself, what were the responses from Asia, responses from European countries, and what was the long-term effects of this deal, basically, geopolitically speaking, at least we think. That's going to be basically the overall focus of the video. At the very end, I'm going to give a brief analysis of our own. So let's start. What's the deal? AUKUS defense deal between Britain, US, and France provides Australia with nuclear submarine powered submarines, which allows them to basically stay underwater for much longer and to carry far more weapons. They've made sure to emphasize the fact that these nuclear submarines are not carrying nuclear weapons, or at least are not supposed to, but they're nuclear powered. And this caused this is, by the way, there is going to be a sharing of nuclear technology, which so far US has only done so with the UK. There is going to be some US deployment in Australia, and there is going to be some computer and cyber technology sharing. So it's not just the submarines, but the submarines are the biggest deal of it. But this caused a huge controversy among the Western countries and among NATO members, because France already had a deal with Australia to provide it with electric diesel engined submarines to the cost worth of 56 billion euro. And France feels that this their deal was cancelled without notice. Australia is still eligible to pay some fines, but Australia claims that following the final phase of their production, they issued a warning to France that our approval of this design does not mean a green light for production. So there are all these legal fights going on, but France was very much more than economically, politically at least, made a big deal out of this. They described it, the French foreign minister described it as a stab in the back by the US. They implied that this is the sort of action we expected from the previous US government, meaning Donald Trump, not Joe Biden, who had just given a speech on, multilateralism and reestablishing ties with NATO allies. Let me just give you some more details. A European Union also criticized the US's choice to sideline a European partner and ally. Sorry, by the way, the French defense minister said it was a stab in the back, not the French foreign minister. That was my bad. He even went further. He said, that is why I say there has been duplicity, contempt, and lies. And when you have an ally of the stature of France, you don't treat them like that. This is because France French officials claim that even up to 2 months ago, they were speaking to American officials and British officials, and they literally asked them about rumors regarding such deals, and the deal. The US and UK officials denied the deal. As I mentioned, Australia could pay between 11 to 400 million dollars to France as a part of the, I don't know, fines or for the designs. I don't know as a part of what, but anyways. But following the France's escalation of the works, as I mentioned, Australia came out and said we didn't give a green light, and Australia said France is making too much of a deal, and France's submarine technology didn't meet our needs in an increasingly hostile uh, word, which was clearly referring to China. Okay, let me go further. Another action taken by France was that France is trying to basically there is a next round of EU-Australian trade talks. The 12th are due next month, which I think has just basically happened or is about to start, and it remains to be seen how deeply other EU states wish to become embroiled in the fallout from the French loss of a commercial contract. But the French are clearly pushing for a tougher stance on Australia in trade talks due to this event. There are other critics, not just the French. There are other critics. Australian Greens leader Adam Brandt criticized the deal, saying that it escalates tension in the region, again, clearly referring to China. Theresa May, the former Prime Minister of the UK and a backbencher, criticized the UK government involvement in this, saying that this is dragging UK further into Pacific region conflict, and saying that this could potentially legally bind UK into a action if there is ever an invasion of Taiwan by China, which was very, which was, I think that was surprisingly cogent analysis by Theresa May. Now let's get to the Asian response. Asian response was far more, the Chinese response was described as far more less aggressive than thought, but China said this is a Cold War mentality. They lamented the escalation of tensions in the region. Then after the AUKUS deal, you had the British Navy coming to the region. Then you had Chinese airplanes going near Taiwanese air zone. They never violated Taiwanese air zones. So these actions happened, but in terms of rhetoric, China was relatively calm. And it's important to mention this comes at the heels of increased Russian-Australian tensions rhetorically. We discussed this in our previous videos regarding Afghanistan, and economically regarding coal and importation from Australia. So China was somewhat subdued. Malaysia and Indonesia were very negative about it and describe it as escalation of, again, Cold War and tensions in the region. And North Korea warned of an arm race in the region, which is the usual line by the US government. Philippines was also somewhat critical of the action. On the other hand, you had South Korea timidly responding positively and saying that the countries in the region should do more to secure them. Taiwan obviously very much welcomed the deal. Taiwan is increasingly worried about Chinese ambitions. Japan, again, more diplomatically, was positive on the deal and urged the world to unite against common threats. Again, this is all referring to China. But the most sort of aggressively positive country about this was India. Indian press said India, which is one of the very few countries, I believe 6 countries before Australia, that has nuclear submarine power technology. Indian press said that this may be a green light for India to have Indian uh, Indian Indian submarines with nuclear weapons. India saw this as a strengthening of Americans' presence in the region against China, which is good for India. Then, following this AUKUS uh, uh, deal, there was a Quad meetings and as we mentioned before, Quad, the alliance between India, Australia, US, is being and Japan is being revived. So a lot of India was very much, you could say, positive on this issue, and frankly happy. Sorry, I'm just checking some of my documents regarding this issue. So AUKUS is one organization which is very much affected by this. Another organization which is very much affected by this deal. Oh, sorry, before getting to this, I just wanted to point out that I mentioned that the deal between France and Australia was 56 billion euros worth, and Australia may pay between up to 100 to 400 million dollars of fines. The cost of AUKUS deal is not clear. The Congressional Research Service assessed it cost approximately 4.27 billion Australian dollars. That's the Australian Congress, by the way, to procure a Virginia-class submarine. But the Morrison's government determination to build them in Australia and to develop all the overhead involved in operating nuclear power submarines safely and responsibly will likely blow out that figure substantially. So I couldn't find any specific numbers on the cost of this deal. But I just wanted to, before moving on to the institutions, I should have mentioned that. But I mentioned the Quad security deal, which is some articles are being written that Quad could become the NATO of the Asia, or the new NATO, as NATO sort of loses its value, so to speak. I am a bit more suspicious of such things, but that was one international institution that you could argue was a strength. There is a Asian institution called Association of South Asian Nations, which includes Myanmar, Laos, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Brunei, and Philippines. And they were, when AUKUS was announced, they became very worried because these countries have good relations with China and are heavily dependent on China and US, both US more politically than economically. So they became very worried. But recent articles are saying that, they are being more conciliatory towards AUKUS, and AUKUS and Quad are reassuring them that ASEAN, as they're known, or whatever, I don't know, however they're pronounced, they should feel safe, and they shouldn't feel their relationship with China is going to be compromised due to this new recent deal. Let me read this. After more than 5 decades of peace and prosperity, ASEAN now has to ponder how to live with the new Western fortress established in its fourth yard. The 2074 word statement by the Quad leader on 24th of September for the bloc. So that's a positive thing for the Asian countries. Furthermore, thanks to India and Japan, as they have already linked up with the AOIP. AOIP is the ASEAN Outlook on the Indo-Pacific proposed areas of Quad cooperation. So it's a framework for development in the Asian countries, and Quad has proposed cooperations on a number of issues, including COVID crisis, immigration, and such. So these are, these are the very specific ramifications following the AUKUS deal. Now, before getting to our analysis, let me just give some more sort of news stuff. Regarding France, UK is now pretty much sucking up to France very much. Boris Johnson has started talking French, and so to speak, they're trying to kill them softly, and they're emphasizing the unique cultural heritage that France and UK share, and they're being very nice to France rhetorically. US also trying to mend ties. US it seems has besides, I don't think this was an action trying to undermine France. It was more of a we don't care. We just wanted to make money, and we didn't think you would be this upset. A lot of people in UK and US though are saying France is making too much of this. This was a financial deal, of course. We would try to outbid them, and this is the funny takeaway of the thing. I think we mentioned this in a previous video, but there is this great moment where Joe Biden forgets Morrison, Scott Morrison, the Australian Prime Minister's name, and he's like, thank you, Boris Johnson, and thank you from down under, you crocodile hunter. I don't know, and there is this great moment of that. So check out that video if you are looking for a laugh. Now, for a very quick analysis, this is the biggest sign that the Obama and Trump policy is very much being followed by Biden, and US is shifting towards the Pacific and focusing on China. And I would think Quad, I don't think Quad will develop into something like NATO, but Quad alliance will get stronger. I would think we will move towards a more, NATO is a very US run operation, US centered operation. I think Quad will have will be a bit more multilateral, just simply because the US, I don't think, doesn't want to spend as much money anymore. I think Europe will increasingly move towards its own unique foreign policy and a more robust defense system. I mean, we had a recent Greek-France defense deal and all that. Although, I mean, analysts have been saying that since the Bosnian crisis, and when US showed in the beginning very lack of interest in the crisis, people have been saying that. So maybe I'm wrong, and maybe the fact that Europe is so much in the pocket of the US financial institutions means nothing. But at least France may move towards that direction. France has had a strong and powerful army for many years, even internationally speaking. So they may act independently, especially with we discussed this hopefully in a future video, but with the right-wing sentiments rising in France, that's a likely situation. And I say that because while Europe did condemn the action in a way and all that, most analysts were saying that Germans, Italians, and Polish, for example, these ones were the ones that were mentioned by the analysts, are far more interested in their relations with the US than France in many ways, especially Germans. That's crucial because they are the ones that pretty much run the EU, as well as the French. So it's not clear that will there be significant consequences for European politics, but I think internationally this is the beginning of Cold War. Sorry, I just went for a cliche, I suppose there. But yeah, this is a very clear step and concrete step towards the increasing tension with China, I think. Although I think the people who are acting this and are actually doing this at the moment are mostly interested in money, and are this is more about the, getting a deal over France. And by the way, the technology, the submarines will not come into effect, I believe, until 2024, by which time a lot of analysts said the technology will likely become obsolete. So there's a good chance that, again, it's all about the Franklins, as they say. Okay, thank you for watching this video. I have nothing to add on AUKUS deal, and I'll get into some more. I think we're gonna do, I'm teased the Iran-Shanghai deal, but that video will also, I think, tie nicely to this. So hopefully you'll check that out as well.